We set this award up in a way that we think is unique. We included the fans, we included the publishers, we included the pros, and this is our third year, as I just mentioned, and it's been successful. We are following the spirit of Mike Wieringo and the types of things that he enjoyed. And the kind of things that we enjoy too. We continued the publisher participation this year for juror consideration. Jurors chose works from submissions as well as the titles and publishers that they liked from their own reading. I absolutely saw both. And voting was very successful again. We were up, at least in terms of geography, we were over 120 countries this year participating in the nomination process. So, go us. I want to take a moment to recognize some of the staff members that participated in the creation of this evening. Starting with Steve Conley, who is responsible for graphics and our website. Matt Merritt, who is in the back of the room live streaming us and was the poor sap that again dealt with the nomination process and went through the thousands of nomination ballots to validate everything and count everything and call out the stuff that was invalid. God bless him. David Jeffrey is responsible for the rest of the evening. The banquet sponsorship efforts, including the gift bag, does a great job. Thank you to Brad Tree for hotel logistics for everybody who's come here tonight. Mark Nathan is the evil genius behind the operation. Constant Katsafanis is responsible for the centerpieces on your table. They're once again lovely. Andy Trahan coordinated the help to put the gift bags together, so thank her. I want to take a moment to thank our two photographers. John Molesky is in the back of the room, and Bruce Guthrie is to my left. So I'm going to take a moment for the folks that are coming up on the stage. As you exit the stage, please go to Bruce. Bruce would like to take your photo as you exit with your award or to recognize your presentation or whatever. Go to Bruce. Eric Mesa is in the back of the room videotaping this, and we'll edit it, and it will be a lovely video that we'll post on social media. Thank you to Josh Gold for the awards themselves, and John Gallagher for the program and the presentation on the screen. I want to recognize the jury. It's an interesting job that you get to do as a juror for this award. You get a giant pile of things to read through and figure out of this set of things from publishers in addition to what you've already read and like. And these are all the things that the publishers really liked the best and thought were worthy of the award. What if those are the best of the, it's an impossible task. So it's a good challenge to have. Dr. Christina Blanche. Tim Lenahan, Afua Richardson, Bob Schreck, and Tom Spurgeon. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed your swag. And of course, our perennial jurors, Todd DeZago, Craig Russo, Mark Wade, and Matt Wieringo. Let's take a moment to recognize the presenters you're going to see tonight. Roth Ritchie and Philip Sablik, Afua Richardson and Katie Cook, Shay Fontana and Brian K. Vaughan, Cully Hamner, Craig Russo, Mark Wade, and Matt Wieringo, Arlie Mancini and Dean Haspiel, Tom King and Tom King and Mitch Jareds, and then Kevin Brogan coordinated the presenters for the Hero Initiative. So a big hand for all those folks. Lee Weeks was going to be up on the stage, and he was not feeling well, so Mitch was kind enough to step up, and we thank him very much for that. A moment for me to run through the sponsors. Please clap if you like or work for these people. The presenting sponsors of the Baltimore Comic-Con and Cards, Comics, and Collectibles. Gold sponsors are Boom Studios and Webtoon. Silver sponsors are Fantastic Forum, Graphite, SourcePoint Press, and Valiant Entertainment. And you'll see this stuff when you get home and start peeling through your goodie bag. The gift bag sponsors are Abrams Comic Arts, Action Lab Entertainment, Archie Comic Publications, Boom Studios, Dark Horse Comics, Diamond Comic Distributors, Dynamite Entertainment, IDW Publishing, Lerner Publishing Group, New York Review Books, SourcePoint Press, Tokyo Pop, Valiant Entertainment, and Webtoon. As we have every year so far, we have drinks at the bar outside and coffee in the back all throughout the evening. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize the person who's going to introduce the keynote speaker. Paul McSpadden is the person who preceded me in the awards that we hosted. I've been doing this since we've had the Ringo Awards, and we created the Ringo Awards. But Paul McSpadden was the host of the Harvey Awards for many years. And a lot of what we learned about putting together an award show and administering the awards themselves came from Paul. I leaned on him a lot as a crutch, and he provided tons of great insight, so we appreciate him. Give him a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul McSpadden. Come on up, Paul.
Thank you. This is nice after an unofficial Deep Six a few years ago. I guess I shouldn't say that. It wasn't very tacky. Look, I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate being back in Baltimore. Being able to come back and accept Mark's kind invitation to revisit the convention. It's just been a joy for me, and I've enjoyed it. It was deeply appreciated and great to see Mark and Shelley, Randy, David, Chris, Andy, Matt, Brad, Steve, David, and a host of others. So thank you all so much for being so warm and inviting and welcoming. And I've had just a great time being back and seeing people who I learned to love and appreciate over the years. So thank you very much. You're very kind. Soon after I attended the Baltimore show for the first time, Mike Wieringo passed. Familiar with his work, but not with Mike, I was surprised by the number of wonderful comments I heard from the Baltimore staff about Mike. Not about the book he was drawing or whom he was working with, but rather it was the quality of his life and his person. While it's certainly not unusual for the passing of a well-known professional to elicit comments of sorrow or something like, "He will be missed," there was and is a genuine affection and sense of loss, something like a family loss, which affected those who knew Mike best. Sometime after the show, I pulled up Mike's website and read virtually all the entries for the past several years. What struck me most was the regularity of the comments he made regarding his family, including the one bemoaning his brother Matt, commenting about his lawnmower incident, which he was not happy about. But it was obvious that this was a guy who believed in his family and shared with his family and loved his family. He wrote about his mother and father's meeting, the years of his childhood spent in Germany, and who would be attending Thanksgiving and Christmas gatherings. In short, at least to me, I began to sense what there was about Mike which warmed the hearts and spirits of those who knew him. I was honored earlier this evening to meet his parents for the first time. In doing so, I was reminded of the words of Erich Fromm. The most important influence on a child is the character of his parents, rather than this or that single event. And so, in meeting Suzanne and Matt, it is clear that in celebrating Mike's memory tonight through our ceremonies, we also celebrate the quality of a family who instilled in their sons, both Matt and Mike, the qualities we all aspire to: integrity, honor, and love. While we recognize their presence earlier, I'd like to recognize both for their upbringing of two sons that live in our hearts in an ever-present position in who we are. Their kindness and generosity in allowing the Baltimore Comic Con this continuing opportunity to remember and commemorate Mike's work and life allows us to remember who he was, what he did, and what he means to us. So again, to the Wieringo family, thank you for your love, for your passion, and for the way that you brought up your children. Thank you so much. During my first semester of college in Oklahoma, my best friend and I nearly flunked out. So our parents wisely decided to divide us. And my mother sent me to a small Methodist college in Fort Worth, Texas Wesleyan College, and I became a youth minister at the Methodist church located on campus. And one of the most thoroughly wayward and irritating kids I worked with in the local Boy Scout troop included a very snide and sarcastic Bob Wayne. I did find out quickly that Bob was a comics collector, and we often had occasion to discuss and trade comics. And at this time, I think it's only fair, Bob, to offer two apologies. One, I now realize that I did my best to fleece and bilk you as often as humanly possible, and for that I'm sorry. The second apology, though, was for me. I was much too kind and should have done much more and a far more thorough job in separating you from your best books. Bob and I kept in contact over the years since, and even after I moved to Dallas for graduate school, I occasionally shopped at Bob's comic shop, Fantastic Worlds, in Fort Worth. In fact, my copy of the signed limited number edition of the first printing of Will Eisner's Contract with God was one that I bought from Bob at his shop. I probably tried to steal it, but it didn't work, so, you know. In trying to better understand the wisdom and good judgment always practiced by Bob over the years, pardon me, just a little frog in my throat there. Our mutual friend, science fiction writer Lou Shiner, World Fantasy Award winner several years ago for Best Novel, shared this anecdote with me. So I'm quoting from Lou here. I didn't write this, Bob, so it's not my fault. Lou says, Lou says, we went to the Chicago Comic Con together in the late 70s, and I had, by entirely legal means, come into the possession of a lot of early Marvel collector's items. And Bob had his own chicken boxes of sale comics, enough to justify a road trip. We were not, however, in such high cotton that we could afford to stay in the Con Hotel. Instead, we camped out at a Motel 6 in Skokie and used public transportation to get to and from the con, which would have been fine, except that we ended up with a lot more cash than we anticipated after the dealer's room closed. We discussed several alternatives, but Bob finally convinced me that fortune favors the brave, which is how we ended up at 2 o'clock in the morning on the L, carrying $2,000 in small bills and a bright orange plastic Porky Pig lunchbox. As we got back to the hotel without incident, it seemed to confirm Bob's premise that only a complete lunatic would carry that much money in a conspicuous manner in a container in a dangerous setting. And nobody wants to mess with a lunatic. And Bob even claims that somewhere he still has the lunchbox. Somehow accepting and appreciating such bravery on Bob's part, DC Comics offered Bob a job, one that lasted over 20 years. During this time, as Paul Levitz accurately offered, Bob was a tireless advocate for comic shops and was both a visible and behind-the-scenes supporter of enhancing and building a stronger foundation for shops across the country. Talked to Mark Nason a little bit about Bob, and he mentioned that when Bob speaks at meetings and conferences to shop owners and others in the industries, he's unhesitantly been honest, direct in trying to balance the interests of owners and of DC. It is this kind of advocacy and forthrightness that has garnered such a strong and continuing respect for Bob from so many. So, it is my honor, after 50 years of knowing Bob, to present to you our keynote speaker for this year's Ringo Awards, a man with a message and a true love for comics. Ladies and gentlemen, from the stately Wayne Manor in Fort Worth, Texas, Mr. Bob Wayne.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening. As you heard, I'm Bob Wayne. I was on staff at DC Comics for nearly 28 years, but I'm semi-retired now, so my apologies for triggering anyone's nostalgia or triggering a flashback either. Thanks to Mark and Shelley Nathan and their team for inviting me to deliver the keynote for this year's Ringo Awards. Like most of you, if not all of you, I'm a fan of Mike Wieringo's work, especially the joyous fun that he brought to every page. And it was not a surprise that Mike was as much fun as his work. When I agreed to make this keynote, I asked Mark what he would like me to cover in the speech. And his reply, perhaps foolishly, was, if you could talk about your love of comics, collecting comics, your passion for comics, that would be ideal. As difficult as it is for me to talk about myself, I'll give that a try. And I will talk about comics some as well. For those of you wondering how I ended up as this year's speaker, it's very simple. My first professional work was published in 1976 in Charlton's Scary Tales number 5. So if your last name starts with any of the letters from A to V, and your first professional work was published prior to 1976, yes, you're right, it should have been your turn. Please see Mark later this evening to make your case. Growing up with the last name Wayne, learning to read primarily from 1958, 1959 DC and Dell Comics, I'm sure at some point I dreamed I'd make a living in comics. But be careful what you wish for. Although if you had told me in 1959 that in 2019 I'd be reflecting on a career that allowed me to meet folks like Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and Michael Moorcock, I would have been skeptical. I also would not have known who any of those people were. Especially important to this is my bad experience in 1960. Let me explain. As a kid, I always loved origin stories. In fact, one comic published in 1961 eluded me for 15 years. I finally found a copy of at my first New York City convention. That was DC's Secret Origins #1. I found it and met legendary DC editor Julius Schwartz on the same day. He was not impressed because he already had a copy. Speaking of origin stories, and we all have them, here's part of mine. My paternal grandfather was a bus driver for Trailways in the 1950s. He usually drove a round trip from Fort Worth, Texas to Galveston on the Gulf of Mexico. At the end of each drive, he would walk through the bus and pick up any comics that were left behind by the passengers. And he would give me those comics whenever my family went to visit him, and I frequently asked to go and visit him. When I was 4, I spent a year as the stereotypical sickly child and spent much of that time with my mother reading comics to me, that and watching The Adventures of Superman on our black and white TV set. I grew frustrated that my mother was not always available to read them to me, so I convinced her to teach me how to read on my own. This was a horrible mistake. The first comic I remember buying with my own money was Superman 137, cover dated May 1960. When I was 5, a 10-cent comic book was a significant portion of my allowance. So when I started school, the first grade in 1960, I was already reading at a DC Comics level before I walked into that elementary school. They tried to teach me how to read using the most boring stories I had ever seen. Dick, Jane, Sally, and Spot, their incredibly annoying dog. And our teacher, Mrs. Turner, read us a bit of a boring run, Spot, run, see, Spot, run, that type of stuff, and then asked if anyone knew why Spot was running. I raised my hand and replied that it was probably red kryptonite. Without saying a word, she took me by the arm out of her classroom to a bench outside the principal's office. I sat there while she went inside. She came out of the office and told me to sit there and wait for my mother, which seemed odd because I rode a school bus. I really wasn't sure my mother could even find the place. She did. They told her there was something wrong with me. At this point, she was quite familiar with the random effects of red kryptonite and suggested they didn't realize that I already knew how to read and they weren't going to take away my imagination from me. What if he needs that to make a living someday? Well done, Mom. So I was back in class and still allowed to read comics. The next part you already heard a version of. So fast forward a bit, 1969, my Boy Scout troop was sponsored by the local Methodist church. They let us hang out in their youth center on Saturdays. Watching over us was a youth minister who heard me mention my love of comic books. Oh, do you like comics? I'll bring some of mine next week to show you. That man knew more about comics than I had ever imagined and helped nurture my interest in collecting, and also started the longest friendship of my life. 50 years and counting. So that was, as you already heard, Paul McSpadden. So I'd like to take a moment to thank him tonight for all the mean things he said. And Paul, I know where you live. I continued to read and collect comics and started buying duplicates of the ones I was sure would be valuable at some point in the future. For example, I bought 2 copies of everything I could find by artists like Neil Adams, Jim Steranko, and Bernie Wrightson. It didn't take me too long to start selling new comics to my friends in 1973 as Seagate account number 40. And no, I'm not sure that Phil Suling realized that I was still a teenager when he opened that account. I went on to sell those duplicate comics at conventions, plus publish a fanzine, run a convention, and open a retail store. In 1987, I moved from Texas to a job with DC Comics at 666 Fifth Avenue, which led to a few awkward conversations at conventions. You publish a comic called The New Gods at 666 Fifth Avenue? Don't you realize your address is the number of the beast? I did. Now I'm a consultant in the comics industry, and I serve on the advisory board of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. So I'm still involved in comics, and I still collect way too many things, from Dell map-back paperbacks from the 40s to original art to my collection of Sergio Aragonés' Scrooge the Wanderer. Our field has seen a lot of changes in the 60 years since I started buying comics in 1959. One change I intercede to me that is inarguably for the better, so let me be clear, I believe that inclusion is important to the future of comics, and I believe in the power of tolerance, diversity, and representation. I don't believe that comics should be set in stone based on how they looked when any of us were children. I don't believe that most readers today would be interested in stories in which Jimmy Olsen uses his signal watch to have Superman get a kitten out of a tree while a bunch of generic white kids gathers to cheer him. So don't misconstrue any of my remarks about my time learning to read over 6 decades ago as support for any reactionary back to mono movements within our community. That ain't me. There's plenty of room for all types of comics and all types of comic fans all over the world. In closing, I'm going to take advantage of having this microphone and tell you one more anecdote. When I was a kid, new comics were 10 cents. To get the most out of each dime, I would buy comics based on the number of costume characters per title. That meant the ones I read first were Justice League of America and adventure comics with the Legion of Superheroes. In 1963, when I was 9 years old, JLA 21 arrived, Crisis on Earth 1. Double the characters, the Justice League and the Justice Society. But it was continued next month, and I really wanted that second part. The following month, I anxiously rode my bike on the appropriate day, but of course, I was already tracking the release schedule when I was 9 to get JLA 22 at the 7-Eleven near my house. I got there, no 22. Without checking with my mother, because remember it's 1963, so no cell phones, I rode the other way across the bridge of what is now Interstate 20 and along a narrow, hilly road to the next convenience store about 1.5 miles away. That was called $2, a small store on one side, a giant liquor store on the other. Still no JLA 22. But another mile up, Interstate 35W was a new shopping center. 35W runs the length of the United States from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. It's kind of busy. At that shopping center was a G.C. Murphy variety store. They had the largest D selection in town, and they had them on sale earlier than everyone else. And there it was, JLA 22, along with several other comics I wanted. I made my purchase, got back on my bicycle, rode the 2.5 miles back home, completing what was at that point the longest bike ride of my life. Waiting for me was my frantic mother, who was clearly upset that I was gone for so long and amazingly unimpressed about my 5-mile bike trip. There was no disguising the G.C. Murphy bag holding the comics, so she had no doubt where I had been. I was grounded and sent to my room with my comics. All because of JLA 21 and my singular focus on obtaining JLA 22. I tell you this so I can remind you that while we all have our own origin stories, very few fields have the passion that we and our colleagues have in the world of comics. And it's up to all of us to follow Mike Wieringo's example and continue to show that passion throughout our careers. And in closing, I'd like to thank my mother for never throwing out any of my comics, even after I scared the crap out of her. Thank you.
Bob, that was a great job. For our first categories tonight, please welcome to the stage Ross Ritchie and Philip Sulick.
Man, they will just let anybody hand out awards at this show, won't they? So, first thing I wanted to do is thank Mark and Shelley for doing this incredible show and these amazing awards. And what's really cool about the Ringos is we all get together to be able to celebrate the incredible work of these amazing writers and these incredible artists. Now, what I'm figuring most of you don't know is that I actually wrote a comic book, and I did this before I started Boom. Keith Giffen bamboozled me into joining a project with him that was published through Image. This is back in 2003. He called me up. He said, I want you to write this comic book. I said, Keith, I'm not a writer.
He was right.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, I was right. And so we did a series at Image Comics called Dominion, and through that process, I proved that for a writer, I'm a very good publisher.
And almost 14 years later, it's working out pretty well.
Yeah, no complaints.
So, likewise, what many people don't know about me is that I actually wanted to come into the industry as an artist. I actually went to art school here in Baltimore. And when I was just a pretty young kid, I went to my first comic convention. And it was a hotel show in Roanoke, Virginia in like 1990 or 91. I don't remember exactly. But the first creator I met was actually Ringo. And he was also fairly young, and I was really excited because I'd never met an artist, like a person who did this for a living. And so I went up and nervously showed my portfolio to him, and it was in a sketchbook because I didn't know what a portfolio was supposed to look like, and it was awful. But of course, as anybody who knows Mike knows that he took a ridiculous amount of time and patiently went through it and gave me a bunch of really great advice. And at the end of it, he offered to draw a sketch in my sketchbook. And this blew my mind because I didn't know that that was a thing. And I certainly didn't know that that was a thing artists did for free to dopey little kids, for dopey little kids, right? So he draws this sketch, this beautiful sketch of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And I thought it was awesome, and I was so excited, and I thanked him. I took off, and I got home, and I realized it had blown my mind so much, I had completely forgotten who this artist was. I hadn't gotten his name. So for the next 2 weeks, I ran around my local comic shop trying to find who the Sandman artist was that had drawn this sketch in my sketchbook. and of course, at the time, I think he was working on a Doc Savage 2-issue thing. So that's how early it was. Anyway, the other thing that was amazing about Mike was that over the years, like, not only had he made a lifelong fan of me, but I kept coming up to him and showing, my portfolio, and he kept giving me great advice. And I think that's exactly the spirit that we're celebrating here tonight is Mike's generosity and his nurturing of talent. And so, I think, like Ross said, luckily, we're both better publishers than we are creatives, and so I think we should get to the awards, right?
Well, before we get to the awards, I have a Mike Wieringo story.
Oh, okay.
And it isn't about the kindness and the nurturing. So about 25 years ago, I worked at a company called Malibu. I think that's mine. Hang on a second. Yeah, it's Keith Giffen. He's like, I'd like my script back. So I worked at a company called Malibu Comics, and I was the young marketing guy in 1993, and Ringo was working in an art studio that was called Art Am Us, also known as Artemis. And he had studio mates Jeff Parker and Chuck Wojciech, and as a young marketing Turk, my job was to call up the creators and set up interviews for press to be able to promote the books. And so we were promoting the Ultraverse. And I called the Artemis guys up, and I asked them a bunch of questions and set up a bunch of interviews. And little did I know that after I had done this, they hung up the phone and together started to laugh about my name. They were like, Ross Ritchie? Who's called Ross Ritchie? I can't believe this guy's name is Ross Ritchie. And so a couple of weeks later, I get this FedEx envelope, and I open it up, and it's a piece of original art, and at the top is Jeff Parker's drawn a cowboy and a ridiculous cowboy hat, and what he's saying is, Ross Ritchie. And then as I pull it up further, there's Chuck Wojciech has drawn another cowboy that's even more ridiculous than the previous cowboy with a more ridiculous cowboy hat, and the cowboy is saying, Ross Ritchie. And then, of course, I pull it up, and at the very bottom is Ringo's sketch of an even more ridiculous cowboy with a more ridiculous cowboy hat, and he's saying, you stay away from them pigs, boy. So let me just say, maybe we knew two different Mike Wieringos. It's true.
All right, should we get to it?
Let's do it.
All right.
So is this my part?
This is your part.
All right.
You got it.
The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Writer are Brian Michael Bendis, Richard Dent, Ryland Grant, Jeff Lemire, Scott Snyder, and Brian K. Vaughn.
And the award goes to, oh God, this is the hard part, okay. Brian K. Vaughn.
I feel like the fix is in. This is ridiculous. Any of my other very deserving fellow nominees are more deserving of this than I. I just want to say I love Ringo's artwork so much, and my favorite Ringo collaborator is Mark Wade, who I don't know if Mark's here tonight, but I just wanted to thank him. It was 20 years ago. I was a college student, and Mark Wade was so patient and kind to me, and really helped me understand this industry and how to write a comic, and I'm just enormously grateful to him, and yeah, so I just wanted to thank him and everyone who's been so nice to me over the years. So this is too cool. Thank you guys. Right on.
All right, and we're going to move on to the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Colorist, and they are Tamara Bonvillain, Steve Connolly, Matt Hollingsworth, Rachel Smythe, Dave Stewart, Matt Wilson, and Na Young Kim, also known as Ya Ong Yi. I hope I did that correctly. And the award goes to, ooh, this is my part, this is your part.
This is very exciting. The best colorist is Tamara Bonvillain.
And we're happy to accept this award on Tamara's behalf.
All right, so the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Series are Batman, White Knight, DC Comics, Bitterroot, Image Comics, Black Hammer, Age of Doom, Dark Horse Comics, Blammo, Kilgore Books, The Highest House, IDW Publishing, The Immortal Hulk, Marvel Comics, and Venom from Marvel Comics.
And the award goes to, this is my turn. Ooh, it's a tie.
That's very exciting.
It's comics, so they have to fight. So the best series goes to The Immortal Hulk, Marvel Comics, and Black Hammer, Age of Doom, Dark Horse Comics. We're going to accept on behalf of Immortal Hulk, which is an awesome book that you should all read.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here with all of you. Especially thank my Black Hammer co-creator and collaborator Dean Ormston, who's in Barnsley in the UK right now. He's a great guy, and I'm so lucky to work with him and with Dave and with Todd Klein and all the artists who've helped me with Black Hammer and everyone at Dark Horse. So thanks.
He just walked right up. It's like, I don't need stairs.
Pretty sure you fall into that category too, right?
He's bigger than me. It's amazing. I'm from Texas and I'm not worthy.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we?
We'll keep going.
Sorry, I get a lot of Texas in the office, okay? A lot. The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Comic Strip, or panel, are Amazing Spider-Man, Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, King Features Syndicate, Bloom County, Berkeley Breathitt, Universal Euclid, Doonesbury, Gary Trudeau, Andrews McMeel, Universal. I always want to say Andrew.
That's not what it is.
That's not what it is. Okay, Garfield, Jim Davis, King Features Syndicate. Yeah. Luann, Greg Evans, Andrews McNeil, Universal. Gotta write that down.
You gotta do it 3 times.
Nancy, Olivia James, Andrews McNeil, Universal. Nailed it. Pearls Before Swine, Stephen Pattis, Universal. Patsis. Randy, there should have been a pronunciation key on that one. You did great up until there. Okay, Universal Euclid.
The award goes to Nancy, Olivia James, Andrew McNeil, Universal. Accepting on behalf of Olivia is Tom Spurgeon. Where's the amazing Tom Spurgeon? Woo-hoo. There he is.
Great, more time for dad jokes. Let's.
This is terrific. If you're like me, you've enjoyed Olivia's kind of reign over the comics world, the comic strip world, the panel world, from its beginning. Now I'm exhausted from just walking up the stairs. This is hysterical. She is super, super talented. And I hope that we get her for years and years to come on Nancy. And I guess the only thing I have to say is thank you very much. Sluggo is lit. And let's enjoy Olivia for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip and Ross. I would like to welcome our next presenter to the stage, Fred Chamberlain, to present the Hero Initiative Lifetime Achievement Award.
At 5'8", I'll take the steps. I'm here as a fan, and I enjoy this dinner because it's a wonderful thing to be able to see creators appreciating one another and just to kind of sit and watch it. So thank you for allowing fans to be a part of this. And I'm very excited to announce that the first slide will reveal this special announcement, but I'm very excited to announce that Dynamite Entertainment will be publishing a limited edition photo cover for Serpico #1. Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Is going to make this presentation very, very simple and easy for me. Jose has been working professionally in comics since he was 13 years old, which makes me think that is really impressive, or Walt Simonson and Kevin Nolan are slackers. He worked in Argentina for various publishers before working as a young man for Charlton Comics with their romance comics. And at the very young age of mid-20s, 1974, he came to New York City and did some amazing things. Within the first week, he met up with Luis Dominguez, who brought him to various art offices to introduce them to publishers. The first office they went to was Western Publishing, who at the time was producing Gold Key Comics. He walked him in and he introduced Jose to the editors, and they offered him a job. They then left that office and went to DC Comics, and he introduced them. Luis Dominguez introduced Jose to the editors, and they offered him a job. They then walked to the Marvel offices, and from what Jose has told me, he said, "I'll wait in the lobby." And when asked why, he said, 2 jobs is enough. That was the first week. His second week in New York City, he went to a dance that was being sponsored by his English class, and he met the love of his life, Alejandra. And they spent many, many years together after that. Second week. So that means that's really impressive, or most of the people in this room are slackers. Since his time working at DC Comics, he's largely been focused on licensed work over comic books. And his artwork for decades, and even still, can be seen at amusement parks, on T-shirts, Presto Magics. Any Presto Magics fans out there? Underoos. Can I get some underoos? Posters. Anybody wearing them right now? Yeah. Posters, stickers, pencils, school supplies, everywhere. In fact, because of that, to this day, most people, when they think of DC Comics, they think of images that were created by Jose. And as I was reflecting on that ridiculous gag with that old cool photo of his, I was struck by the fact that Jose's work has most likely been seen by more human beings on this planet than Al Pacino's. If you think about all of those images and all the ages that have seen those images over the year, that's very likely. And it's kind of mind-blowing to think about. Jose also worked on the DC Style Guide. And most of us in this room are aware of the implications of that. But for years, my understanding is that when artists would start at the company, they would be handed a copy of the Style Guide and say, this is what these characters are supposed to look like. I have seen people meet Jose and become emotionally overwhelmed. Fans, artists, writers, people who just owe much of their love of comics to the images that he brought to those pages. And they stutter. There's a famous story about Mobius going into the offices in DC, and there's chuckling going on, and talking with Andy Helfer, I believe, about art. And he was showing some of the work that Jose had done, and his question was, he uses models, no? And Mr. Helfer said, no. And Mobius's response was, son of a beach. My French-Canadian grandmother probably is rolling in her grave at that conversation. Many people have wondered why Jose hasn't done more comic work, why most of his career has been focused on licensing. And that really speaks to the man. His simple response would be, less worries about deadlines. One of the many amazing life lessons that Jose has shared with me and shared with many people who've encountered him and gotten to know him is that he works to live. He doesn't live to work. There's something very valuable in that lesson. When I met him, he would get up in the morning, he would work, and he would spend the afternoon and the rest of the day with his wife. In a world that is so busy, there's some important lesson there to kind of chew on. He's an amazing artist, and we could list DC Comics Presents, Superman, Twilight, Atari Force, Hulk versus Batman, or Batman versus Hulk, as they like to say at the DC offices. But as a human being, he's even more compelling and more impressive. He's humble. And again, I've seen this over the years every time somebody interacts with a man. He's humble. Humble to the point that this actually most likely makes him very uncomfortable. He's a perfectionist in his art, and if you've looked at his art, you could see that. He's got a natural, voracious, and unending curiosity about people. He's constantly watching, not in a creepy way. No, not in a creepy way. And I think that really shows in his artwork, in the humanity in his artwork. You can see not only the brilliance in his anatomy and his storytelling skills, but you can see the humanity in his heroes. You can see Batman's stubbornness. You could see Superman's determination. You could see Wonder Woman's nobility. You could see the Hulk's rage. It's all right there, and it's compelling. He's also quick to acknowledge talent. I remember being enamored immediately with Jeremy Bastian's work and Cursed Pirate Girl. Yeah. And I picked up a copy of that for Jose, and we walked over at this convention a handful of years ago to look at that work and watch Jeremy as he drew, and Jose was standing behind him and looking at him. And he said, "You don't draw all this by hand." And Jeremy said, yes, I do. And I'm not an artist, so I'm going to have to refer to my notes. Come on, that's crazy. He's compassionate, he's empathetic, and he's got a kick-ass sense of humor. Amazing. I fully believe that touching and affecting other people is the greatest achievement that any of us can have while we're on this planet. Jose does that with his work, and he does that with who he is as a human being. Exposure to his art has changed our view of comics, and exposure and getting to know this man has changed our view of the world. Because of that, I'd like to recognize Jose and present him with the Hero Initiative Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I guess the reason I am here is because you are here, okay? I guess there is a mistake anyway, okay? But I am happy to receive this recognition. I'm happy that it's from the Hero Initiative, whose work I admire and respect. But this is very nice. I should thank too many people, okay, because I was very lucky having in my life people who allow me to draw and to encourage me to draw and to do what I like to do and make a living with that. Too many people. Thanks to all, and thanks to you, and thanks to Baltimore Comic Con for this, okay? Thank you.
Congratulations, Jose, and thank you, Fred, for presenting the award. Everybody strapped in? The next two presenters for the next set of awards, Afua Richardson and Katie Cook.
Oh, we made it, guys.
We didn't plan a shtick.
Not at all.
Oh, no.
We have no plans.
No, if someone says, hey, we need a women in comics panel, I just form fully frothed from the lecture. And that's that. Here we are. This is it.
Thank you so much for getting me out of my pajamas, which prominently features Jose's work, to be here. You know, I could come up with
I don't know. We're here to do fan favorites.
That's right.
There we go.
Absolutely. Because you know, I'm a really big fan of comics, and I'm just so glad to be here with you guys. Most of the people in this room are actually my fan favorite. I know that sounds really corny.
I don't know. I am sick of most of the people. I'm kidding!
She's at Booth. Well, no, I'm kidding. I have tomatoes. No, honestly, when I was about 18 years old and I was a band nerd, like attending, music and art and doing an undergrad at Juilliard for classical music, I was going to comic conventions and I would say, this guy, that guy, that guy. And you could just walk right up to them. You could just walk right up to the creators of your favorite books and just interact with them. That meant so much to me. That meant a lot because my life was incredibly hard. I mean, it just really simple kindness, and being able to meet people who create the heroes that formed my mind, that informed my decisions, that, you know, when I was on a subway and someone stole my friend's book bag, my first reaction was I took off my shoes and ran after them and swung my flute over my head like a lasso and hit them in the back of the head. I could have been killed.
I have a new hero pitch.
No, I read entirely too many comics, and it just, but in my life I really needed a hero, and I'm just really honored to be here with you guys. So thank you for being here. Okay, no tears, I have so much makeup. All right.
You can do the first one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The award for fan favorite hero goes to... Oh,
villains
see,
first. Look at
that's
you. Okay, so I'm going to point out this is not her fault. Hero was on top of the pile.
Okay.
There we go. Now it's up to Hero.
What? Now we're going back.
This is all bad. Who's the charge of the PowerPoint.
It's fun. It's fun. Toaster Dude. Welcome to. Slide that under there.
There's a shelf.
Right? It's convenient.
Okay, are we doing? Okay, which one's next?
Ours.
Harley is going to accept on their behalf. Because he is.
I gave us no notes.
Where's Arlie?
Come get your thing.
People's got drinks to get to.
Oh no. Okay, I'm gonna do villain. That's appropriate. As the My Little Pony lady. It's all good. So the award for fan favorite villain goes to. Oh no, it's hard to pronounce. Why are you guys doing this to me? Lance Cordry from Aberrant from Action Lab Entertainment. Woo! Oh yeah. Oh, we got a person. There you go.
Thank you, guys. I don't know what this says about the fans. This guy's a real jerk, but I guess that's what makes it good. Yeah, I mean, this is an amazing award ceremony because it does come from the fans, it does come from the community. I'm just so, thanks to Mike, I mean, his legacy, gave birth to all this, and it's been beautiful to watch. I don't know if I'm going to get back up here, so let me just, thanks to the Action Lab people, Brian Seaton, and Danielle, and the Shawns, and Nicole, just for believing in the book. Thanks to Carla Nappy, who's with me, and Steve Prince, and Jeff Leeds, and they noted these characters up to death, and they helped me give birth to Lance Cordry. R.J. Hendricks and Ryan Colucci, who kind of got the ball rolling on the production of the book. Thanks to the artists, John Borjuska, Davi Leon Diaz, Awan Joko Triono, HDE, the best letterer on the planet. Thanks, guys. Awesome.
I get to announce the award for fan favorite new series. And the winner is Love, a webtoon. Keep clapping. You've got to give the woman more time.
I didn't know this was going to happen, so I have nothing prepared. But I am very happy to be here. I'm very humbled to be surrounded by so many talented people. Your warmth and your love for comics is just overwhelming, and I'm very thankful for this community and all of you. To call you my coworkers in a way, I am very honored. Thank you very much to everybody who has supported me, the readers and Webtoon and my editors and everybody. Thank you.
Oh, favorite new talent. I'm like 20 years too late for this one for me. That's all right. I'm old. It's fine.
Old-ish.
Old-ish.
Why were you seasoned?
Seasoned. I like seasoned. Makes me sound like paprika. It's all good. All right. Fan favorite new talent. Maria Villanova, also known as Angelicious from Webtoon.
I'm I'm sorry you sat back down.
Get back up here.
You've got more speeches.
I'm not Angelicious, but on behalf of her and everyone at Webtoons, thank you so much for this award.
That's all right. And the final fan favorite publisher. Dynamite Entertainment.
Wow. I practically don't know what to say. So thankfully, as many of you know, I'm a man of few words. By the way, Jose, we got to talk about likeness rights for the Serpico comic, okay? God, this is a great award. Mike Wieringo, I have to say, was one of the most talented creators that ever left his mark on comics. I'm not even sure Mike ever realized how great he was. But everybody here realizes how great he was. And I think we should all give a round of applause to Mark Nathan, who helps keep that spirit alive every year. I see a lot of friends in the audience, and I want to thank the creators, the retailers, the fans, and the team at Dynamite that really made this happen. I'm lucky enough to accept the award, but everybody else did the hard work. The support over the years, I'm going to name a few people, do the thing you shouldn't do, but I'm going to name a few people, and when I leave people out, I'll probably get attacked for it. But Jose Villarrubia, who's always been a close friend of mine, someone who I met when he was coloring the Inhumans. Greg Pak, Amy Chu, who we work with right now. So many great people in the audience and just so many people that helped make this happen. I want to dedicate this to my father, who passed away last year. Much like Bob Wayne, I started buying comics as a kid. Bob and I share a birthday with George Lucas. George never shows up at our party, though. But I used to buy comics 3 for a dime with the covers ripped off. My father hated the comics. He wanted me to have a different hobby: baseball, football, anything that was an American sport. He was a religious man who I think only once was upset at the church, and that's when I was 13 and they handed out the Pope John Paul II comic. And I found out there were comics that actually had covers on them. So, even though he didn't like it, even though he couldn't understand it, he supported me and he was happy for me. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Very much.
All right. Thanks, Katie and Fua. And congrats to all the fan award winners. Those are voted on during the nomination phase, and they are by all the fans, all the thousands of fans that I mentioned before from those many, many countries. Okay, our next set of presenters, please welcome to the stage Shay Fontana and Brian K. Vaughan.
Hello, I'm Shay, and I write comics for kids.
And I'm Brian, and I write comics absolutely not for kids.
And since comics are for everyone, we're just going to get right to it and let everyone out there get to the bar sooner. So let's hop in.
Yes.
All right. The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Artist or Penciler are
Joe Bennett,
Sean Daly,
Ezra Clayton Daniels,
Steve Ellis,
Ron Newson Frere,
Dan Mora,
Dustin Nguyen,
Ryan Otley,
Sean Phillips.
and the award goes to Sean Phillips.
Oh, awesome. It's Sean's child's birthday, so he is not here, so we wish happy birthday to them and accept graciously on his behalf. Oh, wait. He's here? Okay, we got some confusion. All right.
No?
Well, congratulations to Sean, regardless. All right.
All right, the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Letterer are
David Aha,
Arlie Mancini, also known as Arachon,
Taylor Esposito,
Jared K. Fletcher,
and Todd Klein. This one? And the award goes to Mr. Todd Klein.
This evening has made me think about my own origin story when I was a kid, reading comics and tracing the characters on the covers, totally ruining those comics. But I also traced the logos. I think there was something going on there. This has been a wonderful career I've had, and I appreciate all of your support and friendship over the years. Many of you are friends. Many of the fans that I've got to know have been wonderful. I've seen a lot of them here, and I just want to thank you very much.
Oh, sure. The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Anthology are
Action Comics, 80 Years of Superman from DC Comics.
All We Ever Wanted, Stories of a Better World, A Wave Blue World.
Femme Magnifique, 50 Magnificent Women Who Changed the World from Black Crown IDW Publishing.
Grief, Source Point Press.
Twisted Romance from Image Comics.
Where We Live, a benefit for the survivors in Las Vegas, Image Comics. All right, and the winner is Where We Live, a benefit for the survivors in Las Vegas, Image Comics.
All right, here comes Greg. Greg Pog, everyone.
Hi.
I'm just one of the contributors to this anthology. Dozens of people worked on this, and in particular, we should give a big shout out to J.H. Williams and Michael Perlman and Will Dennis, who are the organizers and editors of this project. And huge thanks to everybody. There's so many projects like this in the comics industry where terrible things or crises or issues are happening in the world, and folks in the comics industry time and time again have stepped up and put together projects like these, anthology projects like these, which have raised thousands of dollars for good causes. And so huge thanks to all the creators. I know there are a lot of creators in this crowd who have contributed to similar projects, and to everybody who's supported them, who's spread the word, and who's bought these things. It means a lot to me to work in an industry where people care, and thanks so much to everybody.
All right, now we're going to do the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Single Issue or Story, and they are...
Aberrant number 4, Danger Zone.
Black Hammer Cthulhu's Dark Horse Comics.
Champions number 24, Marvel Comics.
Klaus and the Crying Snowman from Boom Studios.
And Swamp Thing Winter Special, DC Comics.
All right, and the Ringo goes to Swamp Thing Winter Special, DC Comics.
Oh, you guys rock, thanks. This award's going to my wife, Colleen. She's the best person, and she never comes to these things because I have 3 horrible children. Thank you so much. Comics are my life. I think this is the greatest medium America and the world could work in, and I just thank you for all working in this medium. It means the world to me. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian Shea. Our next award of the evening is the Michael Ringo Spirit Award. Here to present it are perennial jurors and one stand-in, Cully Hamner, Craig Russo, Mark Wade, and Matt Maringo.
So Todd DeZago's not here, so we're going to make this real quick and not funny, not a script. This is about comics that Mike liked, and I mean, honestly, the comic had a tiger in it. So, say something.
Yeah, so when we were trying to decide who was going to get this award, we looked at a lot of books, and we all had our favorites, and you know, we were turning in our votes and everything, and suddenly this one book just appeared, and suddenly everybody was just like, oh, wait a minute, nope, and everybody just pushed everything else aside, and we're like, this is the book, this has got to be the book. It's got a tiger in it, it's got a fox in it. We took one look at this book, and for me, this award has been, you know, is this a book that Mike would have wanted to work on? Is this a book that would have made Mike envious, that he would have, you know, that, like the day that it came out, he would have been working on his blog sketch. You know, I got to write a blog post about this book, and this book was it. Let me go ahead.
I found out about this 2 days ago. I really have nothing to say. I'm filling space up here, so that's, yeah, okay.
Everything these gentlemen.
And Mike would have loved that statement. I'm pretty sure.
I love you. Pretty much everything these guys said. We are here because we wanted to honor the comic that we thought Mike would like the most this year. And this year, we are proud to announce that it's going to Isola from Image Comics with Brandon Fletcher and Paul Pritchard. Just leap right up. Vault right up, man.
I thought I was going to sit in the back of the room. They asked me if I would just come to the Ringos this year, and I said, "Oh yeah, I've never been to Baltimore before. This is great." And I thought it was like the Eisners, where you can just go as like a fan and sit in the back, and so I had no idea. And this is a book that my best friend and I have wanted to make for 2 decades, and Mike was an inspiration to us, and I'm sorry, I'm a little speechless. This is, I think this really, thank you. I'm the one here accepting this, but this is Carl and Michelle. This is their award. This book exists in its current format because Carl was doing an Eisner Award-winning comic strip about animals, and it had an audience, but he was also doing superhero books, and that had an audience, and those two audiences weren't reading the material, so he asked me to come up with something that would kind of fit in between, yeah, this is it. And this book is crafted to let the art do the talking and let Carl and Michelle work their magic on the pages. And Carl's line work is gorgeous, and one of our lead characters is a tiger who only speaks through emotions. She has no words, and Carl's able to do that through his line work, through the character's acting, and Michelle brings so much emotion to the page just through her colors. So, man, this is for Carl and Michelle. And me and Aditya. Thank you as well. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. This is a real honor. Thank you.
Thanks for calling standing in. Todd couldn't be here. He's got his high school reunion. Okay, our next 2 presenters for the next 4 awards. Please welcome Arlie Mancini and Dean Haspiel.
Not at age 52. I can't do that anymore. We just met tonight, by the way, and we both work at Webtoons, and we are the future of comics. So Jose, you earned it. You deserve it, man. That was a beautiful thing. So real quick, like 5 days ago, I believe it was Vito Del Sante, wrote on Facebook, whenever he's supposed to be saying, "Oh, I'm going to be in Baltimore." He posted that, and he wrote, "Family reunion." I think it was Shelley Nathan that confirmed it and said something about, or at least here at the show, this is the Thanksgiving of comics. Right? So this is a really cool award, the first one, the first 4, the nominee, this is for Best Cover Artist. And I just wanted to say one thing. I'm going to put this in your head because the cover, I love this award because the cover is the first thing you see for the comic, right? So this is going to say a lot about my taste and my growing up with comics, but I'm just going to throw some stuff out, some titles, okay? Hulk Giant Size Annual #1, Steranko. Fantastic Four #51, This Man, This Monster, Jack Kirby. X-Men #137, Is Jean Grey Gonna Really Die? Daredevil #181, Frank Miller with Elektra and Bullseye. Thor #337, Walt, what were you doing with that horse? And here comes a bunch of #1s. American Flag #1, Howard Chaykin, still ahead of his time. Love and Rockets #1. What was that crew doing in that cover? Dark Knight Returns, iconic. Frank Miller. Saga #1, where the protagonist is breastfeeding. That's awesome. All right, with that in mind, we're going to list these names.
The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Cover Artist are Travis Charest, Nick Darrington, Dan Mora, Sarah Richard, Alex Ross, Fiona Staples, and Jim Woodring. And the award goes to Fiona Staples.
Hi guys, I'm not Fiona, I'm Brian, but I just texted her and I was like, what should I say if you win? And she says, thank yourself if I win for supplying prompts for all our covers. Ha ha ha, I think that would be fun to see. That is a bunch of bullshit, I gotta say. All I ever tell Fiona is I'm so tired, I don't know, just do something and make it look beautiful, and she does. She's the greatest of all time, so thank you so much.
I gotta take off my glasses for this one. All right, take it off. Now it's glasses instead of shirts. At least it's not pants. All right, so the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Awards for Best Nonfiction Comic Work are All the Answers, Simon & Schuster.
The Bridge, How the Roblings Connected Brooklyn to New York by Abraham's Comic Arts.
Hey Kiddo, Graphics.
I moved to Los Angeles to work in animation by Boom Studios.
Let's Make Comics, Watson Gupta.
And Where We Live, a benefit for the survivors in Las Vegas by Image Comics.
And the award goes to Where We Live, a benefit for the survivors in Las Vegas, Image Comics.
Once again, I'm just one of the contributors to the project, but this is winning in the nonfiction category here. And I just wanted to point out this is an anthology of work revolving around the shooting in Las Vegas, and a number of survivors of that shooting contributed to the work. And I mean, when I read the work, I was incredibly moved, and so I think that those nonfiction stories from those folks in particular are stunning, and I can't imagine that process of coming to tell those stories after that kind of event so quickly. But this is a tribute to them, and thank you so much.
And now, the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Presentation in Design are
Absolute Sandman, Overture, DC Comics.
Berlin, Drawn and Quarterly,
Madman, Quarter Century Shindig, IDW Publishing.
My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, Image Comics,
Only Living Boy Omnibus, Paper Cuts.
Persephone, Boom Studios,
Terry Moore, Strangers in Paradise Gallery Edition, Abstract Studio, Graffiti Designs.
and Yellow,
Yellow Negroes and Other Imaginary Creatures, New York Review Comics.
and the winner is Absolute Sandman Overture by DC Comics.
I'm accepting this for Lou Prandy, who is the designer who did this for DC. As soon as I get to my note from him, I will tell you what he had to say. Lou says, it was an honor to be a small part of the Sandman universe, and thanks to Scott Nybacken for his amazing job editing the volume.
And the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Humor Comic are Blue Chair from Webtoon,
Get Naked, Image Comics.
Love Advice from the Great Duke of Hell, Webtoon,
Mad, DC Comics.
and Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons, IDW Publishing. And the award goes to
Mad, DC Comics.
I promised some people there would be a costume change from my earlier notes. I suspect this award is for Mad because of Mad's long years of service to the cause of sarcasm and humor. So I think the appropriate people to acknowledge this would be William M. Gaines, Harvey Kurtzman, Al Feldstein, Nick Meglin, John Ficarra, and from the Burbank crew, Bill Morrison, Dan Telfer, and of course, the usual gang of idiots. And on behalf of all those people, thank you very much. And I'd like to also, point out that the longtime art director of MAD, Sam Viviano, did the dead-on accurate caricature of me that you might have seen earlier in the straitjacket. So thanks to Sam again for that.
Thank you, Dean and Arlie. Our next award of the night is the Dick Giordano Humanitarian Award. Please welcome to the stage Walter Simonson.
I was going to try and jump up on the stage, but not a chance in hell. Two things. Dean Haspiel, Warren Zevon, Van Morrison, too cool for school. And the other is Mark Nathan. I'm freezing. All right. That being said, I don't have any real prepared remarks, which is really true. I have one sentence I've been told I must read at the end of my remarks. But I have no remarks because I spent the last 2.5 months worrying my ass off that I couldn't get Wheezy to come to the convention. For those of you who may not know, back in early August, we were out walking our dog in the twilight. I would not recommend that to any of you in the future. And Wheezy stepped in a depression, rolled her ankle, fell and broke both bones. So she broke her ankle. She's doing fine. But she's still wearing a walking boot, and she was concerned about coming. She didn't go to the New York convention a couple of weeks ago. It was really up and down as to whether she would come to this convention at all. And I called Kevin Rogan, your initiative guy, who called me about the award before she broke her ankle. I called him back and I said, look, here's what happened. I don't know if she'll be well enough to come to the convention or want to come to the convention. If you want to find somebody else, we can do this later. And he said, no, we'll do the videos, we'll do all the stuff they have to do, and if you have to accept it for her, that'll be fine. Fortunately, many of her friends, besides me, pressured her into coming to the convention. Thank you, Gene Scrocco. Thank you very much. Thank you to her physical therapist. She's taking physical therapy. Thanks to her PT instructor to get her to come here. She said, oh, you should go to the convention. So that was most of my time. I had no time to figure out any remarks whatsoever. I will say, I think she's one of the finest editors comic books I've ever had. I think she's a wonderful writer. I speak from a completely unbiased point of view. I'm just letting you know. And as it says in this sentence, and this really is true, she was involved in every major comic book event back when the events began to happen in mainstream comics. She was one of the ones responsible for it. You can blame her. Changing comics, one page at a time. I can't think of anybody that is truer of. Louise, if you would come up and accept your award. And we're going to come up the steps there. I do think this is a complete surprise.
Yeah, I had no idea. There are so many wonderful people out there. It would never even occur to me I would get an award like this. So, thank you, everyone. This is really sweet. Thanks.
Okay, we're almost there, guys. Welcome to the stage, our last presenters of the night, Tom King and Mitch Gerads.
An R-rated show now. Sorry, Facebook. Oh man, it is nice to be in a room of fellow comic creators. It reminds you just how many people it takes to make a comic, and I'm so grateful because I'm here with my partner of 3-4 years, and we can sort of
3 or 4, not 34.
Right, and we're like brothers, and we work so closely. And there's this stupid, silly argument that like, who makes a comic? Is it an artist or a writer? And I'm tired of it. Really, it's terrible. And right, it's stupid, and because it's so obviously the writer. Like basically, I come up with ideas, and you fucking trace them. Then someone else traces you. And like, a colorist, I don't know, has like crayons of 5, whatever. And then a letterer, who the fuck knows what a letterer does? They lose awards to Todd Klein as far as I can figure. So, I'm glad we settled it. Yeah,
We're gonna talk later. I'm sitting next to Brian K. Vaughan. He was just talking about how he wants to do more comics.
Oh, crap. Never mind. Should we start since people want to drink?
Yes.
Do you have the envelopes?
No.
They're like not here.
Uh-oh.
We can make up the winners!
Anything wrong tonight is my fault.
Do you want me to do this one?
Sure.
All right. The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Awards for Best Inker
Are you an inker? Do you?
I do it all, baby.
So your name should be here, technically speaking.
No. J.P. Mayer. Don't pay attention to me. Oh, boy. Mark Morales. Ron Randall. Fiona Staples. Sana Takeda. And the award goes to... What's this word?
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
there's an envelope.
it is an envelope.
Everyone else got this but us.
Yes.
Fiona Staples.
Awesome. Fiona only sent me one text. I don't know what to say now, but it's crazy that Fiona, she does this book almost entirely herself. She colors it, she pencils it, she inks it, she does some of the hand lettering. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, she's the greatest. So thank you, Fiona. Right on. Thanks, guys.
Hop right into the next one.
Let's do it. The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Original Graphic Novel are The Ghost, the Owl, Action Lab Entertainment. My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, Image Comics. Son of Hitler, Image Comics. Upgrade Soul, Lion Forge. And Woman World, Drawn and Quarterly. And the award goes to... My Heroes Have All Been Junkins, Image Comics. We accept this award on behalf of Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker, and happy birthday to his young child.
You ready? All right. So I'm going to do a quick little interlude here.
This is about artists, I believe.
No. Everyone got to tell their Mike Wieringo story, and we were awesome. We were fortunate enough to win Mr. Miracle for Best Limited Series last year, and I wasn't here, so I didn't get to do my Mike Wieringo story. So I have a Mike Wieringo story, even though I never got to meet Mike Wieringo. Like everyone in this room, a huge influence, but specifically The Flash by him and Mark Waid, wherever Mark is. But it was this book that I wasn't reading The Flash, and my brother gave it to me, so then it was special, and Mike's art, it was the first time I'd seen something like that, and that was special, and it was this book about family and love and relationships, and like that sparked something which I think directly led to Mr. Miracle. And it's always been this thing that I've held very close to my heart. And it's not the character, it's those specific issues. And so 2 years ago, my son just turned 2, but when he was born, my wife and I named him West Allen because of those specific issues. So that's my way to ring it. All right, so now we're gonna do the next one. All right, the nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Webcomic are Age Matters by Maria Villanueva, also known as Angelicious, Aztec Empire by Paul Guinan, Anna Bennett, and David Hahn, The Contradictions by Sophie Yano, Existential Comics by Corey Moeller, Lavender Jack by Dan Scotty, Luff, Arlie, Mancini, also known as Arashon, oh boy. The Nib by Various, I nailed that one. And Nothing Special by Katie Cook. And the award goes to dun, 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 The Nib. Accepting on behalf of the Nib is Tom Spurgeon.
I noticed that sitting out in the audience that only a few people have been asked to come up here twice, and 2 of them are really fit and trim people. And then the other guy's 600 pounds and is dressed like a pile of laundry. And so all I figure is that I wrote a bad review of somebody out there, and y'all are just waiting for me to die. So the Nib is a wonderful online and print publication. I think it's immaculately done. I hope that you're invested in it and you're reading in it. It's young people doing all different kinds of comics in political commentary style. It is immaculately done in terms of its inclusion, values, and the comics themselves are really good. So I hope that you'll allow me to accept this on their behalf. That's an awesome bunch of people. I also contacted Olivia James to get a speech from her because I screwed that up earlier. She did write back, awesome. So, thank you so much.
And the nominees for 2019 Ringo Award for Best Cartoonist, are you not a cartoonist? Are Megan Stevenson, also known as Echo Rise. Maria Villanueva, also known as Angelicious. Oh, I messed it up. Terry Moore. Sean Murphy. And Jim Woodring. And the Ringo goes to Terry Moore. Thank you. Accepting on our behalf is obviously Katie Cook.
Hi. I am not Terry Moore. He's in Belgium having more fun than all of we are. But he asked me if I would accept this on his behalf, and I just want to say Terry is an amazing cartoonist. I've loved him since I was a kid, so make sure everyone tells him I said he was very old. Don't say that to him. But no, he's amazing, and he and Robin are two of my favorite people in the entire world. And before I mail this to him, I'm going to put a Post-it note over his name and put my name on it. And that's the text I'm going to send him in about 4 minutes. So thank you on Terry's behalf. He's amazing. Thank you.
All right.
Last one.
Last one. The nominees for the 2019 Ringo Award for Best Kids Comic or Graphic Novel are Aquacorn Cove by Oni Press, Be Prepared by First Second Books, Jupiter Jet by Action Lab Entertainment, The Nameless City, The Divided Earth by First Second Books, and The Prince and the Dressmaker by First Second Books, and Punk Taco by Adam Walenta Entertainment. And the award goes to Punk Taco.
I started collecting comics when I was 5, and when my son was 5, we wrote Punk Taco together, and we created it into the artwork, along with our team, Gabriel Mayorga, Leah Jean Vidales, and our editors, Mike Rockwitz and Roy Opachinsky, and my beautiful wife, Kanani, and we just want to thank everybody that supported the book. It's independent, self-published, and we couldn't do it without you, and we just want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Tom and Mitch. All right. We made it. So, a couple of words in closing. Thanks to all the presenters. Definitely appreciate everybody's participation in the process. We rely on a lot of other people outside of our own staff to make this thing happen, so we really appreciate that. I wanted to point out that there was a tie this year. Voting counts. It wasn't like, 2 people voted and it was 1 a pop. There was a lot of people that voted, and each vote actually makes a difference, so please vote. I will reiterate, and I will probably do this every year, all of these things that you saw up on the screen tonight are great series. These are all fantastic books. So if you haven't read them, pick them up. If you are a librarian, consider putting together a Ringo's nominees or winners section in your displays. Same with a bookstore, a comic store, or an online store, whatever you guys do. I have boxes for the awards if you want to ship them back or protect them in your luggage or whatever, or if you need us to ship them to you, let us know. And we'll see you at the BarCon. Night, everybody.